Now does he see it?
No. All right. That is what.
Yeah.
That's like the YouTube. Do you see that though?
I see that. I don't know what the hell's. I don't know.
It's all right. Just has your IT guy.
Maybe we're not on at all.
Well, just hold on. You can have your IT guy said that he had embedded it on the website, right? The StreamYard link.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you might need to give him a call because this looks like the YouTube.
I'm on YouTube and my website. Tell Phil you have to call him back, or go on. Send him a YouTube link to my YouTube channel.
All right, we see it now. See it now. You're good.
He sees it now? On what, YouTube?
I see it on mine. It's good. I'll talk to Phil. You're good. It's up now.
Hello.
Hey, Rich. Okay, Rich. There?
Yep.
All right, good deal. All right, you got to give me a few minutes here at the very beginning to go through some housekeeping business and so on, and we'll do that when we reach 7 o'clock. We'll run my little open that I put together.
Try to get centered here. All right.
All right, let's get it going. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the debut of Ask the Rules Guy. I'm very happy to be joined with all of you out there. Thank you very much in this very trying time to take a little time out of your day to talk some baseball, not only baseball, but baseball rules. And boy, I've got a really good show coming up tonight because I've got one of the foremost rules experts in all of the world joining me a little later on tonight, and I'll tell you about him in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you thank you very much for your support among all the years for Baseball Rules Academy. If you have been on the website previously to today, and then again today, you've seen a major difference. We've had a website up for about 5 or 6 years, and little by little, our user base has grown and grown. We reached some peaks last year during the World Series where we had close to 20,000 people a day using our website. And I hope that we're able to bring a sense of community of baseball rules to those of us who like playing the game the right way. I think that's the bottom line right there. So what we've done with our new website is added a couple of features that we did not have on the old one. I think I wanted to push away all the feeling that it was a passive site, more like an encyclopedia online. It's not that. It's a rules community. It's a baseball community of interaction, of people talking, sharing ideas, telling stories, maybe uploading videos and showing us what's going on in your world of baseball and baseball rules. And we're here for you, for coaches, for players, for moms and dads, for umpires, certainly, and not any one group over another. We've tried to put every different level of baseball rule that we can find up on the internet, and those rules will always be free to look up. You can do it by a search word. You can do it by the rule or the rule number. If you want to look up a rule in Little League or in the high school NFHS or NCAA, we have all those rules tablets separated and put in our website so that you can get to all of them. There's also a way that you can go out and look at the rules differences between, say, the pro rules or the USSSA rules and the NFHS rules. So we think it's very helpful. I'm doing it out of a labor of love, and we're keeping that part of the site free forever. I think there's also another way that you can join. You can join, and if you're watching on our website right now, you've joined by giving us your email address. That's a free membership. It'll enable you to get all the rules and then also give you a certain amount of content that is reserved for our members. And we have a premium membership program as well, which gets you into all the videos, all the case studies, all the courses, lessons, quizzes, and the ability to get on the leaderboard. If you are a free member, you still get to use the forum. And if you're a full member, you get to participate in writing on the forum and asking a quote unquote rules expert umpire along the way. So thanks for joining us. Now let's get to the program. Rich Marazzi is our guest tonight. And Rich has been for a long time one of the most recognized and respected baseball rules people in all of baseball. You've probably seen his byline before. He has been published many, many times on Baseball Digest. He currently is on Collegiate Baseball Magazine, which he's been doing for probably 30 years. That's where I first ran into Rich's byline, by the way, was in collegiate baseball. And he is now an official rules consultant to more than 15 different major league clubs. And he sends out terrific reports on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's more than that. Anytime a crazy rules-related play happens in Major League Baseball, Rich is on the spot. And he's on the spot tonight on Ask the Rules Expert or Ask the Rules Guy to evaluate a couple of different rules. So what we did tonight was broke it down. We're going to take some of the more misunderstood rules of baseball and talk about those with Rich. And let's bring Rich in right now to welcome him to our show. And if I can figure out how to do this, we'll certainly welcome him. Rich, there you are, going all the way to Hamden, Connecticut. How are you this evening?
Ansonia, Connecticut. Hamden is where George Grant lives.
Oh, you're right about that. I should know that. George was my partner on Fox Sports Ohio for 17 years. He's still my partner. I talk to him all the time, and I know that, hey, you learned a lot of rules from him, and I've learned a lot of rules from him too. Take us a little bit about the rules that we're going to talk about overall, Rich, are misunderstood by so many different people. Overall, why are rules so difficult for baseball people to understand?
Well, I think it's the fact of just a lack of rules education. I think since we're young kids, we developed these, we'll see, myths in the playground and on the outside sandlots. And we developed these ideas over the years, and they're hard to change. So basically, we probably learned the rules the wrong way in the first place, so we carry them with us throughout life.
Let's break down a couple different rules tonight. And the first one we're going to get to, I think, Rich, is for me a very interesting one because it's one where it is so misunderstood. We see it happen in the major leagues. I've been doing baseball on television for the Cincinnati Reds and for Fox Sports Ohio for now 28 years, including this year. And I see this play happen probably a half a dozen times a year. And it's that crazy baseline rule between home plate and first base. When the runner doesn't run in the running lane, maybe he doesn't know what the running lane is, and and he gets in trouble. Tell us the basics of this rule, this 45-degree or 45-foot line rule or runner's lane interference violation.
Okay, first of all, the idea of the rule is to protect the fielder taking a throw at first base. In the early days of baseball, going back to the 19th century, the foul lines intersected the bases, first and third base. Consequently, there was a lot of trouble with fair and foul calls down the line, and also there was trouble with the fielder taking a throw at first base. Usually the first baseman would get knocked over by the batter runner. So what they did was basically they put the runner's lane in 1881. Made it 3 feet wide, 45 feet long. And what the runner's lane is designed for is to keep the batter runner in that lane. And if he stays in that lane, basically, unless he intentionally interferes, he cannot be called for interference. If you ignore that batter's runner's lane, which many runners do, and you interfere with the fielder taking a play, and the fielder does not complete the play by making a put out, the umpire can call interference on the batter runner. So that's basically what it's all about. The lane is not a baseline. It is just an area where the batter runner does not have to run in. However, if he runs out of the lane, he actually risks the idea of being called for interference.
All right, Rich, are you ready to take a look at a couple of these plays?
Sure.
All right, here we go. The first couple that you're going to see, I believe, are plays that happened in collegiate baseball. And you'll see where the runner is running in the fair territory. And that's not in the runner's lane, right?
No. You've got to have both feet within the lines. Even the lines are part of the we'll see the lane. This runner here is running out of the lane entirely, which is very common, especially for right-handed batters, you see, because they've got to cross over, and they don't want to do that. They want to get to the base as soon as they can. And so here the runner just ignores the lane, and he gets in a way to throw, and because the defense did not complete the play, he's called out for batter runner interference.
It happens at the major league level, too. Take a look at this play.
There's the same play, I believe.
Now, it's a different play. It looks like the same play, actually, but I want to ask you about this because it doesn't look like to me that that's a very good throw. Does it have to be a good throw in order for this to be a violation?
Yes, the throw must be a quality throw. What the umpires do in a situation like this, Chris, is they mentally remove the batter runner from the play and say, can the first baseman make that catch if there was no runner there? And most of the times, the first baseman would probably be able to make the catch, unless the ball is like 10 feet over the first baseman's head or wide several feet to either side. So most of the time, it's very difficult to get the umpires to change their call on this by a lack of a quality throw. But from the standpoint of the offensive manager, that's his best bet, to argue that it was not a quality throw. But what the umpires do in a situation like this, as I said, is they will actually erase the batter runner from the play.
The one we're seeing right now is one where the runner is hit with the ball. I've heard where maybe fielders, if they really have a problem, because sometimes that running lane looks so tight that they don't really want to throw. Does there have to be a throw in order to make this call?
That's right. There has to be a throw, and as I said, it's got to be a quality throw. Sometimes a catcher will intentionally drill the batter runner to induce the call. However, there is no guarantee that they will still get the call if the umpires feel that the batter runner still did not interfere with the play. It's still umpire judgment.
All right. Well, that's kind of interesting right there. I think that one of those things, Rich, that surprised a lot of people last year when they were watching the 2019 World Series, Game 6, inning number 7, Trey Turner at the plate. And it could have been a game-changing, World Series-changing time for the Washington Nationals. As it turned out, there was a 3-run home run hit later in the inning, which kind of cemented it for them. But Trey Turner ran down the wrong part of the baseline, and he had a whole baseball world talking about how crazy that was. Let's take a look at that play and see if you can just take it through for us right from the very beginning.
Okay, once again, you'll see where Turner, a right-handed batter, wants to get to first base as quickly as he can. So he runs the entire distance, as you'll see, from home to first, out of the runner's lane. When he gets to first base, he interferes with the fielder taking a throw. Because they don't complete the throw, he's called for batter runner interference. Now, if he was in the runner's lane, and at the last moment he stepped out of the lane to step on the base, and at that point he collides with Gurriel, the first baseman, he would be protected. However, because he ran the entire distance between home and first out of the lane, he's not protected. All right. People say, well, if it happens late in the play, you should not call it. The thing to look at here is that the final layer of the rule is if the batter runner is in the runner's lane and he exits, and while in his exit he interferes with the play, he's okay. However, in this play here, which you'll see very common for most right-handed batters, they want to get to the bag ASAP. They don't want to cross over in the lane, which slows them down, and by doing so, they risk the interference call. Most of the time, this happens when the ball's in a bunt area. Either the catcher or the pitcher is fielding the ball. Seldom happens when it's on the left side of the infield or at second base.
You know, Rich, if I look at this from a coaching standpoint and not necessarily from an umpiring standpoint, how do I coach my players, whoever's at first base, whether it's a first baseman or whether it's a second baseman coming over there to cover? How do I coach them to be able to put themselves in a better position to take that throw?
Well, I'm in a minority on this, but I'll give you my opinion on this. We've talked about this, I think, in the past. In my opinion, okay, first of all, if you're a left-handed first baseman, you got the glove already out to the right side, all right, to the infield side. And you already got a target for the pitcher or the catcher in most cases. However, let's take the right-handed first baseman. What I think they should do is they should get in the same position they would if they're going to receive a throw from third base, shortstop, or second base. Make themselves long. Give the pitcher or the catcher a good target. Also, get out of the lane of the runner, because the first baseman puts himself in harm's way if he keeps the glove in line with the batter runner as you're coming down the line. So I would do is I'd want to get that glove out of the way, because number one, the umpire makes that call by sound. You want to get the ball to the first baseman as quickly as possible. So you want to hear that sound, that snap sound if you're the umpire. By keeping the glove inside over the bag so that you can go either way of the bag, okay, and that's the argument that the baseball people use. What you're doing is you're putting your first baseman in harm's way. The other way to do it is just have the first baseman step out and catch the ball and then step on first base. That to me would be the two best ways to do it. However, baseball people over the years, they're very traditional. They say, what if the first base, what if the throw is to the right side of the bag in foul territory? Well, first of all, if the team has a system where you throw to the target, well, the target's going to be out toward the infield somewhere. And to me, that's the way it should be done. That's just my opinion.
Well, you know, Rich, I remember watching Brandon Phillips play second base for the Reds for so many years, and he was a brilliant fielder. He would be always, for the first couple of years I watched him, he would be a couple of steps away from first base towards second base to really open up that throwing lane. And I, for a while, thought it was kind of I looked at it as kind of a show-off thing until I got to talking to him about it. And I realized it made a lot of sense, because he always had time to get that throw and then always take a side step over and then tag the bag. But what he was doing is that he was giving a lot of confidence to his other fielders, his pitcher, his second base or catcher, maybe sometimes a third baseman who's coming in to field a slow roller or a bunt. Gave a big throwing lane. So, you know, the more you see as a fielder who's throwing the ball that you have a very small target, the more you tense up, and it's harder to make that throw. And I thought that was a brilliant move by Brandon Phillips, and I think you're saying the same thing.
Exactly. And what happens is a lot of players, you were a former pitcher, a lot of pitchers and catchers will just throw to the base. They don't care about what the position of the batter runner. They're going to throw to the base. Well, when you throw to the base, that's where the batter runner is going to be as he's entering the base. So if the first baseman's glove is to the base side, this is where you have many arm injuries, elbow injuries because of this. To me, it's a no-brainer. However, many people do not agree with it, but I'm sure these people forgot more about the fundamentals of the game than I'll ever know. I'm looking at it from an umpire standpoint too.
I saw a gruesome play when I was playing with the Padres. We had a second baseman named Guillermo Bonilla, who was a great defensive second baseman who had that gruesome play happen to him. The ball got to him the same time the runner did, who was flying down the line, and he ended up breaking his arm right where, his wrist, right where the glove was. And I don't think he ever really came back from that. He's not the only one. There are a number of those. So I think that's really a great coaching tip that you just gave right there, is that injuries can happen right there. Just set yourself up with a better throwing lane.
Yeah,
All right,
Brian.
now let's move on to another. Let's move on to another type of play, Rich. It's still a base running play because now that we're talking about interference, interference basically is when the runner is interfering with a fielder. Normally, let's talk about something that is kind of interference, but they call it obstruction instead. And tell us the basics of obstruction and how it differs from interference.
Okay, by baseball terminology, interference is normally an offensive violation by a runner, where he impedes the fielder from making a play. Obstruction is a defensive interference violation. Why they use the word obstruction, I don't really know, but anyway, it's defensive interference. If a defensive player is not in possession of the ball or is not about to receive a throw, he cannot get in the lane of the runner. Okay, he cannot impede the runner's base path. So those are the two differences. It's important to know in baseball the right of way. Basically, the runner has the fielder has the right of way when he's fielding a ball, and it is the responsibility of the runner to avoid the fielder. So those are the basic tenets of baseball fundamentals as regard to the interference rule. The runner must avoid the fielder in general. Okay.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Now, what I want to do is show you a number of examples of obstruction. Type 1 obstruction, as you said, is obstruction when the play is being made on the runner. And there's a lot of different types of situations where this happens. Let's take you through one. We're going to start in a rundown situation. It happened in 2003 when the Boston Red Sox were playing against the Oakland Athletics. And it was a classic obstruction case. And let's see if we can't just bring it up here and share it right now. Let's get this all the way to where we need to go. And here it is. Take us through this play, Rich.
Well, once a rundown begins, okay, the runner has a restricted baseline. He's got a direct line to the base he's going to. He's got 3 feet on both sides of that line. Now, here you have a situation where the fielder, Eric Chavez, without the possession of the ball, and without the act of receiving a throw, gets in the way of Veritek. All right now, Veritek's baseline, he's going to the plate. Now it changes when he goes back. But look at Chavez. He's in Veritek's baseline. Veritek actually has 6 feet of real estate. He has 3 feet the other side of a direct line as he's going to the base. And so he gets in the way, Chavez. Whether or not Veritek tried to buy the call by giving him a 4-run shiver, I don't know. But he was in the right because he was in his restricted running lane. There's only 2 times, by the way, that a runner has a restricted running lane. That is when he is avoiding a tag or if he is in a rundown. Otherwise, a runner's base path is very liberal.
Well, that's pretty good stuff right there. That's not the only way that you see obstruction. You see obstruction a lot of times, obviously, in a rundown, as you said, and we'll show you another one of those. But it also happens to pitchers who are unknowingly in the way between home and first base, like with this play with Michael Ynoa.
Yeah, here you'll see Ynoa as he's about to cover first base. He is oblivious to the batter runner, Ronnie Torreyes, and he's got his back to him. And Abreu takes the play himself. But by having his back to Torreyes, he gets in the way of him and hinders him, and the umpire awards him first base. And has nothing to do whether or not that the batter runner would have been safe or out, makes no difference. The bottom line is at the point of the obstruction, there was no play made on him, so there's a direct play right there, and so therefore a type 1 is called, and he gets first base. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but we just got finished talking about runner's lane and runner's lane violations and interference. But here, this runner, Torreyes, is running. He's not in the runner's lane here. So why should he get the benefit of an obstruction call if he's not even in the runner's lane?
The runner's lane has nothing to do with any other play except the throw to first base. So when you get a play like this where there's a tag play, okay, has nothing to do with the runner's lane. The runner's lane only protects the fielder taking the throw. This is a separate issue altogether, and you could erase the runner's lane from your mind.
It actually is a very smart play because he would have easily been out had he gone around and run in foul territory in the runner's lane. He would have never picked up that call. And I thought that was very interesting, a very smart play by Torreyes. Now, another thing I think about obstruction, a lot of people don't understand, and this gets into a lot of coaches' scalp a little bit, is that there doesn't have to be contact made. Take a look at this play with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Milwaukee Brewers and watch the catcher. He never makes contact with the runner. So is that still obstruction?
Yes, he never makes contact with the runner, but he stays in the runner's lane, you see? In other words, he does not vacate properly. And by not vacating properly, he impedes the runner's progress. Therefore, he is obstructed. So because this is a direct play being made on the runner gets home plate in this situation. By the way, the baseball rule book does not define what a direct play is. That's why I do it anecdotally, by saying it normally occurs in a rundown or when the pitcher is covering first base.
So really, this is a good shot of it right here when you see that if you have 6 feet, you have 3 feet on either side of your direct line from where you're going and the base you came from. So that the catcher's obviously in his line. He wasn't trying to pick up the obstruction right here. It would have been very easy for that runner to lean to his left a little bit, run into the catcher, and then be guaranteed to get it. But do you think that was a pretty smart call there by Joe West?
It was a good call, and if the runner headhunted the catcher on that play, that would also been smart baseball. Runners often do that. I know Shane Victorino was very, very popular to do this kind of thing. But once again, like we said, contact is necessary. All you got to do is impede the runner. If you make the runner go around the fielder just a little bit, the umpires are going to protect the runner, the same as we saw with the Trey's play.
All right, we continue to talk obstruction. We're talking with Rich Marazzi, rules expert, longtime author, rules expert, consultant for many major league teams. And why would they award him second base?
Because the rule states that the runner gets the next base after the last base he legally touched. So the last base he touched before the rundown was first base, so he gets second base. So it doesn't make any difference which direction you're going. You get the next base after the last base that you legally touched. On third.
We'll take another look at it this time in slow motion. He knows that I guess one of those guys is going to be tagged out, and we'll get to that in a second. But he realizes that one of them's going to be out, so why not take a shot at it right here? And he's running right down the line. The catcher, I think, maybe underestimated the speed of Jake Arrieta when he took off from third base.
First thing I told you, Chris, when you asked me to define the obstruction rule, is I said that if a defensive player is not in possession of the ball or he's not in the act of receiving and throw, he cannot get in the way of the runner. And that's what happens exactly here.
All right, let's go back and run this all the way back. Here, both these runners are standing at the bag, Rich. Let's say that Jake Arrieta decides that he's not going to run right here. He's just going to stand there. And as what you normally see happen, the defender comes over and he's got the ball and he tags both runners. Which of these runners would have been out right here?
The trail runner is normally out. The only time the lead runner is out if he's forced to advance to a bit. I think play that happened was 1993. The Orioles ended up with 3 runners at third base, and 2 were tagged. They were all tagged. The umpire called the 2 trail runners out. So you had a double play with 2 runners on the same base right there. 1993 Baltimore Oriole game.
We got to dig that one up and have you talk about that sometime. That's the kind of stories we're looking for here and Ask the Rules Guy. All right, now this is type 2 interference, Rich. You said that's when it's not when it's a play when a play is not being made on the runner. I picked one here with Billy Hamilton. This is where you see a very common happening. Something at second base, ball gets through into the outfield, and the runner and the infielder get all tangled up.
Right. You'll see the moment of obstruction, the play is no longer being made. The ball is by the infielder. So right there. Okay. So what the umpire does in that case, as you'll see the second base umpire, he points to the obstruction. He yells, "That's obstruction," to alert the other umpires he has the obstruction call. However, the ball remains alive and in play. And if the runner is out on a close play at the next base or whatever base he's advancing to, if it's a close play, they'll say, well, the obstruction had an impact on the play, therefore will protect the runner. However, if Hamilton was out on this play by, let's say, 10 feet or so, he would still be called out. There is no automatic base award in type 2, which is unlike type 1, where the ball's dead immediately and then a runner gets the next base. In type 2, there is no automatic base award.
So let's put your coach's hat on for a second here, Rich, and say you got a bunch of young players around, maybe they're high school players or college age players, and What is your advice to them as a base runner when they feel like they're being obstructed right there? They probably know, like Hamilton probably knew right there as he jumped up and he ran into the shortstop, that he may get that base automatically given to him. Do you just give up and jog on in there knowing that you're going to get the obstruction call?
You never give up. First of all, under high school rules, the runner would automatically get the next base, okay, under high school rules. Pro rules and NCAA rules are different. The ball's alive in play, but you always run hard because, like I say, there's no automatic base award. There is no automatic gift here. For instance, let's say that ball got by the third baseman also, and Hamilton attempted to go home, and he was out at home. Now, the umpires may protect him only to third base on this play, but not at home. So if he's out at home, he's out. You see, especially if it's by a pretty good distance. So no, a runner should always run hard, and the coaches need to know this rule especially. The coaches need to know that they really have to move the runner along and to tell them, look, you got to move. This often happens when a runner is obstructed as he's rounding third base with the ball in the outfield. As the runner's rounding third base, you've got a type 2 obstruction. Umpire will point. However, that runner better keep going hard to the plate if he thinks he can make it. If the left fielder, for instance, has the ball a close distance from the infield, the coach should not try to move the runner to home plate, even though he was obstructed, because there's no guaranteed base award. But if he does attempt to go home, and if he's out by an easy margin, he's out. If it's a close play, the umpires will protect him.
You mentioned an interesting play, and we're going to cover this at a later date, I'm sure. But what if a runner is rounding third base and he's obstructed by his base coach on the way to the plate?
Well, now you're talking a different ball game. You're talking coach's interference. And once again, the rule says a coach cannot physically assist the runner. If the coach does something to assist the runner, intent, if it's a collision, there should be no call. If it's just an inadvertent collision. Years ago, however, they would call that. They would call even in any kind of contact. The most recent interpretation has been you must physically assist somehow. So if the coach tried to push the runner up or push him back to the base, then the umpire would call the runner out for coach's assistance.
Interesting stuff. That was kind of a layup for you right there. We've got one more obstruction call. Take us through this. This is another type 2 obstruction. Didn't look like much contact. Maybe a pretty good play by Jonathan Scope as he was going from second to third on this play.
Yeah, and the reason why this happens, you'll watch the defensive player is not watching. He doesn't have the ball in his possession. He's not receiving a throw. He's oblivious to the runner who has the right of way. So when you're on defense, like I told you before, it's important for the players to know who has the right of way in various situations. In this play here, the runner has the right of way. Okay. However, the fielder gets in his way, and the umpire will point. That's obstruction. And once again, because it was a play that he would have easily been made at third base, umpire gives him third base.
Well, good stuff right there. I'm not sure there's anybody out there that can break down baseball rules and baseball rules video as well as you do, Rich. We thank you very much. Now, I had a couple of questions prior to tonight's live stream telecast about this, and maybe they couldn't join us tonight. And so they asked a question. And one of the questions that came up was about a first baseman with a runner at first base, whether he can block the runner's trail to the back to the bag. Can he put his foot in the way? Can he drop his knee? Can he just get in the way? Can you place your body as a first baseman between the runner and the base to play defense? That's a misunderstood rule.
All right, let's get back to the basic definition of obstruction. If you're not in possession of the ball or not in the act of receiving a throw, you cannot impede the runner's advance to a base. So if a first baseman, and I remember years ago, they were all getting cute doing this stuff. First baseman would line up between the runner and the first base bag side by side. And the idea was on a pick play to first base, you would slow the runner down. Well, don't forget, if the runner's going to go back to the base on that situation, the first baseman doesn't have the ball. He's not in the act of receiving a throw. Therefore, you would call obstruction. Sometimes the first baseman would get in front of the runner. And if the runner, wherever runner went, the first baseman would try to block his vision. You can actually use the visual obstruction on that too, because you're hindering the runner. But over the years, they stopped doing this. But yes, now in a typical play at first base where there's a pickoff, if a first baseman drops his knee under pro or college rules, especially pro rules anyway, okay? If he drops his knee and the pitcher has thrown over to the base, the ball's in flight to the first baseman, he drops his knee, he could block the runner from the base in that situation because he's in the act of receiving a throw. However, the runner can also barrel over the fielder on that play legally. He cannot interfere there because the fielder has blocked him legally. Same thing at home plate. If a catcher blocks a runner legally coming into the plate because he has possession of the ball, or if the throw takes him there, the runner can also barrel over the catcher in that situation. So whenever you have a legal block of a base, you also have a legal barrel over of the same base. It goes both ways. So, and basically, to answer your question, no, a fielder cannot interfere with the runner as he's taking his lead side by side, because then he risks being called for type 1 obstruction.
You know, it's kind of interesting what you mentioned right there with type 1 obstruction. What is your advice to umpires when they determine a ball in flight? Is it the motion of the arm making it like when the pitcher is throwing to first base? I mean, he's got to wind up a little bit to throw it over there. Or is it actually when the ball leaves the thrower's hand?
When the ball is in flight, it's in the air. Neither player has possession of the ball. The ball is in flight, and let Mother Nature take its course at that point. That's when the ball's in flight.
So if a fielder drops his knee, whether it's a pickoff at second base or a pickoff at first base, and a fielder drops his knee in front of the bag to block the runner getting back, before the ball actually leaves the hand of the pitcher, that would be obstruction.
Absolutely. Before the hand, exactly. Now, James Loney, I believe it was James Loney, he was very, very popular doing this with the Rays years ago. He would drop his knee, but the umpires never called it because, you know, there are certain plays in baseball where umpires just don't make the call. And I'm not sure how vigilant they are as regard to watching the ball in flight towards first base. But you never see that called. Very, very seldom. However, once again, now the Cubs had a shortstop, I believe, last year, who would drop his knee, for instance, on a steal play at second base. Well, if you drop your knee on a steal play at second base, once again, the ball's in flight from the catcher going down there, you're okay legally. However, the runner can also go into you and cause injury. So if you're going to teach players to be dropping their knees, you are putting them in harm's way.
Well, I think if you know your scouting report and you know whether that runner is a guy that slides head first or feet first, it would make a big difference as to whether you want to drop your knee or not.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. Now we've got one more, and this isn't really a call what a lot of umpires make, but it is a very unusual play. It happened 12 years ago. The reason we bring it up today is because it was highlighted in the Athletic magazine, the online newspaper, which is a very good publication. Jason Stark wrote an article about Benji Molina and how he hit a home run when he was a member of the San Francisco Giants, but he never got credited for scoring the run because he never rounded the bases. Now, he wasn't injured. There is a provision in the rules for that, but I'm not so sure that there was a provision in the rule book for what happened to him. And before you say anything, I'm going to load up the video. We condensed it down as much as we could so that you take a look at it. But I thought it was worth sharing, Rich. And why don't you take us through this? Benji Molina, the craziest home run ever.
Okay, you got Pablo Sandoval on base. When Molina hits the ball, that goes above the green line out in San Francisco. However, the umpires kept the ball in play. They did not rule a home run. And so Molina just stayed at first base. And so everybody thought that it was just a single, basically. Well, Bruce Bochy, the Giants manager, instructed Manny Burris prior to that if Molina gets on base, you're going to go and pinch run for him. So when Burris saw that Molina was on first base and there was no further action, he ran out on the field and he replaced Molina at first base. Now, when he did that, he became an unannounced substitute by rule. So when a pinch runner does that, even though the manager does not give the substitution to the umpire, he becomes the unannounced substitute. He becomes the runner. Well, anyway, the Giants asked the umpires to review the play, which they did. And by the way, the instant replay system just went into effect about 2 weeks prior to that. It was a brand new item. There was no command center at the time. But the umpires looked at the play and they called it a home run. However, they would not let Molina go back out and make his home run trot. They made sure Burris, as you can see, run around the bases. But Molina gets, according to the Elias people, which is the official statistical body of Major League Baseball, they credit him with a home run and 2 RBIs, but not a run scored. They credit actually Burris with the run scored. Baseball Reference has a different take on it. If you go into Baseball Reference, you will see that will say Burris is not even in the box score. In my opinion, what the umpires should have done is, because they put the everybody in a bad position because they missed the call, they could have gone to Rule 803, okay, and they could have used common sense. They could have said, okay, Benji, you come back out on the field, make your run, and just do your thing. That would have been the most common sense thing to do.
Interesting stuff right there. I remember that play. Now that it was brought up again, we thank you for joining us tonight. Do you have anything else about the rules you want to talk about? Maybe a crazy, you've sent out already this year to a number of major league teams. I think you're now a rules consultant for more than 15 of those teams, so more than half the teams.
Yeah, I work with 17 teams. I work with the Fox Regional Sports Networks. As you know, you're all part of it with the Reds, and I work with ESPN. And yeah, I'm pretty busy, and I enjoy doing what I do. I'll tell you one thing. We're just talking about this substitution stuff. One rule that every general manager should know, every manager and player should know, I call it baseball's Affordable Health Care Act. And it's this, simply. If a runner is incapacitated and the ball's in dead ball territory, it could be a book rule double or it could be a home run, somebody should call time immediately and put a pinch runner in. Now, there was a play a few years back in Toronto where Gabe Kapler was on first base and Tony Grafino hit a home run over left field wall. And Kapler, running from second to third, fell to the ground, tore an Achilles heel. Well, Grafino was behind him. He did not pass him. So what happened was the ball was dead. It was a home run. So what Terry Francona did was he put in a pinch runner. His name was Machado to finish the run for Kapler. And then Grafino came around and scored. At the time, I called the Alliance Sports View and I asked them the same question that related to the Molina play. I said, what if the batter was incapacitated and you had a pinch runner for him? And they told me the same thing, that the pinch runner would get credit for the run, but the batter would get credit for the home run. Doesn't make total sense to me, but that's the rule. But an important rule for coaches to understand is this. If a runner is incapacitated and the ball's in dead ball territory, you could put a substitute runner in and have him complete the home run trot. That's it. Or if it's a book rule double, whatever it is, as long as the ball's in dead ball territory.
Wow. Interesting stuff right there. You're always a wealth of knowledge, and I thank you very much for joining us. And I want to thank you also, Rich, for making your articles, your case studies, your expert reports available to me. And to those people who read baseballrulesacademy.com, we've been able to compile years and years of your collection of writings. We put them all into our database so people can look them up maybe by player's name, by date, by slang words, and so on. And it's created a great depth of content for us, which people are very, very happy to have. And I commend you on your hard work. You know, I say this in all the complimentary way that I can possibly mean it. But back in the day when we used to hang around the gym all the time and play a lot of basketball as kids, you know, and just be there all the time because we had nothing else to do. A kid that would do that more than everybody else was known as a gym rat. And that was a compliment, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I would have to call you a rules rat if you want to take it in a complimentary way.
well, thank you for the kind words, Chris. It's always a pleasure dealing with you. And, you know, one other thing, let me say something about you, too. There aren't many broadcasters who are into the rules like you are. And I wish more were, because there is a lot of misinformation that is given. I thank the Fox people. I thank the ESPN people for giving me the idea of working with people, giving me the opportunity. So hopefully we're on a path where we can educate people about the rules. And I appreciate anybody who gives me that opportunity. And you were one of the guys. Well,
thank you very much, Rich. You've taught me a whole bunch about the rules. I'll tell you the reason I started Baseball Rules Academy in the first place is because as a former player, and I played 10 years, 5 in the majors, 5 in the minors, I thought I knew the rule book. So I didn't think I really had to bone up on the rules all that much until the first crazy rules-related play happened on TV, and we go to a 60-second break and come back, and my viewers expect me to know the rule, and I couldn't find the rule in the rule book. I couldn't get an interpretation, and I felt very embarrassed and decided at that point, I'm not going to let that happen anymore. And I got to tell you that right now, the guys I think that appreciate Baseball Rules Academy the most are coaches that are trying to teach your kids and broadcasters. I've got just about every broadcaster in baseball that subscribes. Whenever something crazy happens, they give me a call and say, hey, what do you think of this? Oftentimes I pass that rule on to you to get an expert opinion. But I can tell you that we're trying to do good work, trying to do a baseball community and get baseball played the right way. And I want to thank you again for joining us, Rich. You'll be our guest many, many times over on a consistent basis. We will have this telecast live again next Friday at 7 o'clock. I hope everybody can join. And in the meantime, you're free to hop on baseballrulesacademy.com. And of course, take a look through there. See what you like. Take some tests. Take some quizzes. We've got a bunch of free content in there right now. You can even take a quiz that we call the Impossible Quiz. It's a 5-question quiz. I took it last night. I didn't know any of the answers ahead of time. I only got 3 out of 5. And Rich, maybe you'll hop online and see if you can get a perfect 100 in that particular quiz, the popular quiz, or the Impossible Quiz. Anyway, thanks again, Rich. I do appreciate you being here and spending some time with us on Ask the Rules Guy.
And good luck with your show, Chris, and everybody out there. Stay well and stay home and stay well.
All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us. And it's been fun. We're going to do it again. Make sure you come on back and join us one more time. See you later, everybody.